Live. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Barry Vache. I'm the marketing manager here at Courtney Thorne. We're doing this webinar in conjunction with HUJ. We're going to talk a bit about Connect Health, our latest product. I'll just give you a bit of an agenda, rundown of what's going to happen. I will give you a little bit of background about Courtney Thorne as a company. Then we'll show a little animation. Then we'll hand over to our sales and marketing director, Dave Hewitt. During Dave's presentation, please do ask some questions. The little question box, we will then do our very best to answer all of those in depth post Dave's presentation. Please also understand that the webinar itself will be available after today, and as will the presentations themselves. So once again, thank you very much for joining us today. Please do ask as many questions as you can, and we will do our best to answer them. So let's just crack on and do a little bit of a background on the company itself. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick bit of background on Courtney Thorne, who we are. So Courtney Thorne was formed initially in 1968, so we have over 50 years of experience in developing technology. We've been manufacturing nurse call systems since 1990, so over 30 years in the game. Family-owned company, very much so. Family ethos runs throughout the company. If you speak to anybody that works here, they will tell you that it is very much so a family-type environment. UK design and manufacturer. We feel that it's very important that we have full control over the manufacturing and the design, and it gives us obviously complete insight into our systems. We have dedicated and experienced NHS account managers who've worked extensively with senior NHS stakeholders for a long time now. We have a deep and wide understanding of the NHS itself and the needs of the NHS. We provide wired, wireless and hybrid solutions. We can work with any particular need, and we have a great understanding of what is required within those. We can design, bespoke and tailor our solutions to any kind of building and to any kind of requirement. So I just want to give you a bit of an insight into the healthcare range. These are the values that we put into it as we were going through the design process. So connectivity, capability, simplicity, flexibility, value, and information. So that's just a quick update on that. What we're going to do now is going to look at a little animation. Then we'll hand over to Dave, who will walk you through Connect Health itself, and then we'll do a bit of a Q&A. Thanks ever so much. Thank you. Courtney Thorne's new nurse call system is designed specifically for the healthcare sector, utilising the latest technology and adhering to the strict guidelines required to deliver a reliable and robust system. Connect Health, connecting patients to nursing staff. Robust, versatile and easy to use. Reassurance for your patients and reliability for your staff. Connecting nursing staff and security. Staff attack, ensuring peace of mind for all of your staff. Connecting nursing staff and management. In-depth, understandable reports providing intelligent data to help you plan and prepare. Connect Health, HTM 0803 compliance. Courtney Thorne developed Connect Health with compliance in mind, ensuring that the system meets the rigorous criteria and standards of HTM 0803. Connect Health room units are fabricated from antimicrobial materials, ensuring infection control and removing concerns of contamination. HTM 0803 also stipulates that a nurse call system utilises specific tone and colours of each type of call. For a call, doorbell or bathroom call, an amber light will show and an audible alarm, on for 1 second and off for 9, will sound. For a cardiac call, the light will flash blue and the audible alarm will be a dual tone, on for 0.25 seconds and off for 0.25 seconds. For an emergency, drugs cabinet breach or staff attack, the light will illuminate red and the audible alarm will be a variable tone, For a presence call, the light will illuminate green. There is no audible tone. Solutions that we rely on need to be built and tested to a high standard. However, do buyers seek evidence or prefer to buy based on who they know or what they've purchased before? Connect Health can be deployed using cables and radio, where the radio is certified to meet the highest EN standard in terms of reliability and interference, Category 1. Not all radio nurse call solutions available and installed today in NHS sites can demonstrate independent testing and a certification of compliance. Connect Health can.
Thank you, Barry. Hi, it's Dave here, Dave Hewitt. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for Courtney Thorne. That's just so you can see me. I'm going to take my picture, turn my camera off in a second, so you can actually see the slides better, which I will do now. So I've been in Courtney Thorne for about 5 years now. My background is in fire and security. Especially in the fire sector is a much more highly regulated sector, since naturally fire detection and prevention concerns protection of life. In a similar way, though, we certainly look at nurse call systems, and so do some of the standards look at nurse call systems also as a protection of life, especially when considered in acute hospital environments. And this is something that Courtney Thorne takes very, very seriously in its design of systems. So just a brief overview of just a brief overview of the types of customers that we have in the marketplace. You'll see there a number of NHS trusts, UK NHS trusts. That's just a snapshot of customers who rely on Courtney Thorne technology. And then we have a number of hospitals, a number of markets overseas. And interestingly, if you look in the top left-hand corner there, the furthest customer we have from the UK is actually in the Falkland Islands, where we actually had a nurse call system installed in the only hospital on the island, which is the King Edward VII Memorial Hospital. And more recently, they're building a brand new care home, the only care home on the island. And similarly, a nurse call system from Courtney Thorne will be installed in there as well. So just briefly, just what I'm going to go through the next 10 minutes, hopefully not too technical, I'm hoping, but I'm going to talk about specific areas that buyers of nurse call systems for hospitals should consider. This is not just about whether a nurse call system will call a nurse or create a light to flash. This is more about some of the technical requirements and standards. One of these should be very well known within the NHS, which is the HTM standard that looks at bedhead design and the types of equipment that goes on the bedhead. But there's another European standard which is intimately linked with the HTM. And then there's a desire within the healthcare sector to install cables. And so we've introduced a hybrid scenario where if cables are kind of want to be relied on because that's the way that a hospital estates department might think that is the best solution, well, we can provide a hybrid solution which can deploy cables and wireless scenarios in the areas where it's most applicable. And at the end, we've got some more areas for thought, at which point I'll hand back to Barry. And if anybody's got any questions, as Barry mentioned, you can type the questions in the little questions box, and we'll go through those questions at the end of the session. So the two documents, one I've referred to, which is the Health Technical Memorandum, Department of Health Technical Memorandum for Bedhead Services, fortunately known as HTM 0803. And it sets out to describe how bedhead services should be installed and delivered within the NHS. What you may not be aware, though, is of a European standard that categorises short-range radio devices in terms of their reliability, their robustness and susceptibility to interference. And this is ETSI EN 300-220-1 version 3.1.1 brackets 2017-02 brackets closed. I'll refer to that as the European standard throughout the rest of this these slides. So we have HTM 0803 and we have the EN standard that I will refer to. So now I want to just go into some detail which intimately links these two documents, which may not be apparent at the outset. If we look at page 17, and I'm not going to read all this, you can read it at your leisure. Both these documents are available on the web, and there's links that will be provided to you in the slides when we send the information out to you. But if you look at page 17 of the European standard, it refers to categories of radio receiver. And there are 4 categories from 1, 1.5, 2 and 3. And the European standard, when linked with HTM 0803, both make reference to similar terminology. European standard talks about the inherent safety of human life implications, and it states that a category 1 radio receiver should only be used in situations where inherent safety of human life is an issue. And in terms of HTM 0803, then it clearly states the nurse call system is an essential life safety component of bedhead services. So saying much the same thing. So here we see where if you're installing a system or requesting a system from a manufacturer or supplier, you need to be asking, firstly, is it HTM 0803 compliant? And in most cases, I would suggest most manufacturers and most suppliers will probably say yes. However, when they say yes, my suggestion would be to say you should satisfy yourself that their radio equipment meets the EN standard to a minimum of category 1. Because if it doesn't, I don't see how it can comply with HTM 0803. But why should the onus be on you? You, at the end of the day, should be able to rely on providers providing the right sort of equipment. Why should the onus be on you? Well, here we can go back to the EN standard, and it's this where page 5 sets out your responsibilities. And it sets out your responsibilities quite simply in terms of you must make sure that bedhead services are safe, fit for purpose, and comply with all statutes, relevant codes of practice and standards. And then it goes on to say specifically European standards and technical specifications. So if you have a solution that claims to be HTM 0803 compliant, it must also meet European standards. And in the case of life critical systems, it should meet a European standard that for radio devices at category 1. What the HTM 0803 also calls for, this is a section from page 11, section 5, is that a solution should have inbuilt flexibility. And when the system should be capable, the nurse call system, of seamlessly being changed within a room in terms of software and hardware. Should the actual room have it need to be changed, or equipment moved around, or beds being moved, or the type of room changing from one type of room to another room. Now, again, I personally find it difficult to understand how a solution that involves lots of cables and trunking and ducting can have inbuilt flexibility, and how it can be seamlessly moved and changed as the room itself changes. The definition of flexibility and seamlessly can be debated. However, closing wards in order to relocate large volumes of wiring does not, in my mind, meet this definition and cannot be really HTM 0803 compliant, whereas a wireless system can. So I'd like to show you how we at Courtney Thorne might design a system in a typical hospital. And this is where we can deploy cables if that was a safety feature that somebody had to have cables between certain areas. Now let's think about a system where we have the main server, which is the main screen here in the case of Courtney Thorne, doubles up as a screen which will display the calls, but this is the main heart of the system. Typically that would be fitted in the nursing station. And then we have, in this case, a couple of remote screens which display the call information, change colour, emit sound, depending on the type of call. Now, in a normal sort of scenario, a small ward, we would connect these via radio, either 433 megahertz or 869.2 megahertz. And I'm sorry this is getting a bit technical, but it's about as technical as it's going to get. And but because these devices are not at the bed head, it's probably equally as easy to run cables. So we can actually run Ethernet cables between these devices. Now these devices are high traffic, high data, because all the bed head services from the nurse call system come back to the server, and then the server distributes the information around the screens. So there's a lot of information being passed. And where we deploy cables and radio, we have the best of both worlds. Now, on this system, we also have just one example here of the bed head equipment, which is a call unit and a pair push lead. Now, these are, as I say, at the bed head. It's more difficult to get cables to the bed head without putting in trunking, without taking trunking lids off that exist, and without putting lots of miles and miles of cable. So in these cases, we would always use radio, again, either 433 megahertz or 869.2 megahertz, depending on the solution we're putting in. And again, over-door lights, we don't want to start running cables from the call units or from the server to every single point in the ceiling. So here we would use radio to trigger the alarm at the over-door light. And finally, in this case here, we've got a staff attract solution. And the beauty of Courtney Thorne is that the staff attack solution does not rely on its own host and nodes and devices being littered around the building to pick up the alarms. The staff attack system can signal directly into the Courtney Thorne units using infrared to locate the unit, and then using radio to signal that information to the server and then onward to the screens, etc. So that's how we might design a simple nurse call system for a hospital. So just back to the HTM 0803 document, and the last section 6 here, bedhead service installation, talks about trunking, talks about ducts, it talks about, I don't know, linear horizontal trunking, plastic enclosure ducting, etc., etc. The beauty of the solution I've just explained to you is at the bedhead, as far as a Courtney Thorne nurse call system is concerned, we don't need to worry about any of this information. Where we run cables would typically not be at the bedhead, it would be to the screens from the main server. So it's a section of the standard that we don't need to worry about. So just to summarize and in conclusion, Courtney Thorne, we don't build systems based on a price. We know price is sensitive. We know that pricing goes out to tender, etc., etc. What we're going to look at is building a system based on the specifications and based on standards, based on things such as I've said, where applicable, HTM 0803. And this, as I've demonstrated to you, is intimately linked with the need to have our radio devices certified to an EN standard to category 1 and independently tested to that category as well. Simplicity of installation, wired where we can in the corridors, over the roof voids to get to the main screens if that's a wish, and wireless at the bed head, reducing the amount of disturbance at the actual bed. Simplicity for staff. The last thing we want is a system that is designed to be everything to everybody, so much so that nobody actually understands how to use it. So it's very, very simple to use for staff. And we always provide on-site training to staff, and we can provide training at the end of an installation for various shifts if everybody can't be on site at the same time. Ease of use for patients. It's a single one-button press. They haven't got to look at a handheld unit and think, which button do I press, because there's 16 buttons on this thing, like a remote control for a TV. It is simply one button to press. Full support. The majority of issues and the majority of problems that customers may experience are resolved over the phone with either a conversation or by remotely connecting to the server. That remote connection is done via a 4G router, so we don't rely on the infrastructure within the hospital to connect to the server. We take care of that using mobile data. And then we have UK-wide engineers who are on call 24/7, again, either on the phone, remotely, or when needed to actually go to site. Some of our hospital customers actually have their own estates people who we have trained, and they support and maintain the system themselves. They can move equipment, they can add equipment, they can program equipment with the help over the phone from our own technical people, and they manage the systems very well. So we can provide that service and train your own people to look after the systems. We also have a number of what we call gold partners, and we're more than happy if you have your own electrical contractor company that looks after, your FM company that looks after the estate. We're more than happy to train them so that they can look after the system, again with our support over the phone. And finally, the system is designed and manufactured in the UK, and as I demonstrated on the first slide, is sold throughout the UK NHS Health Trusts and also many hospitals around the world. So thank you very much for that. At which point now I'm going to pop my camera back on, and I'm hoping that Barry's got some questions for me.
I do indeed. Can you hear me all right, Dave?
I can, yes.
Excellent. Okay, so we do have some great questions come in. Thank you very much for these. The first question that came in, is this product available now?
Yes, it is. So we've already installed it in, I don't want to drop names, but there's a couple of hospitals in central London and in the southeast. So we've installed it in a number of hospitals, and it's gone in very, very successfully. We often when we introduce new products, you know, it's like anything new. You've tested things as best as you can. It's when it gets in the real live environment that things actually are really under test, and everything's gone very well.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Dave. How quickly can this system be installed?
In terms of lead times, so we're not a company that literally you place an order and we turn up next day to install it, because we are quite popular with customers, so we do have a lead time. Generally, for a planned installation, we would look between sort of 6 weeks, something of that nature, from place of order. However, we do have situations sometimes where systems fail. Quite often systems can fail. We do find cable systems, wired systems, or systems that are very old that people can't get spares for anymore. They suddenly fail, and they desperately need a solution, at which point a wired solution is something that can very, very simply be provided. And so we can turn those around in a matter of days. In fact, we had one hospital where our stores is in Bournemouth, which is Bournemouth Hospital, who literally placed an order in the morning, drove to our offices later on that morning, picked up the kit, and actually it was on site the same day.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks, Dave. How long on average does an install take?
How long's a piece of string, Barry?
Double harvest length.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the system. And a typical ward, let's say, I mean, a ward which requires maybe, I don't know, a dozen beds, let's say 15 beds, and overdoor lights, a main server screen, and maybe one other screen. We would actually, the actual installation for Courtney Thorne would probably be about a day, 2 days, depending on how many engineers we put on it, but a day, 2 days for one engineer, or something of that nature. Obviously, there would need, if there's overdoor lights, there would need to be some extra work to be done to fit the lights in the ceilings and that sort of stuff. And if there's main supplies required for the display screens, that would be dependent on the hospital's relationship with the electrical people to put main supplies in. But the actual Courtney Thorne work itself, with our engineers on site, a typical ward would be done in a day to 2 days.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So leading into that, so what's the battery life of the wireless call points, and are the over-door lights wireless?
Okay, so the battery life of the call points, because we sell systems into care homes as well as into hospitals. And if you imagine a care home nurse call system, is probably being used, the call points are being used a lot more than in a hospital system. So in a care home environment, the design of the system is for the batteries to last over 12 months, because during a maintenance visit, what we would do when we maintain the system is we would replace every single battery in the system. Now, if you translate that into a hospital where the systems are not used as often, or not, the buttons are not pressed as often, we could typically get 18 months, you might get 2 years out of a battery. But again, we would specify really the system should have its batteries changed, within that 12-month cycle. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Are the over-door lights wireless?
Okay, so the over-door lights, the trigger to the over-door lights, to make the over-door lights flash a certain color or flash or make a certain sound, is wireless. The only thing that's required, which is something that would be is 12 volts power to the lights, and that's provided from a 12 volt power supply with a twin cable just to daisy chain the over-door lights.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Dave. So is it possible for 2 separate but adjoining wards to be linked to see emergency calls for each other?
Yes.
I think that was a quick answer. How easy is it to reprogram and change the names of the call points?
Well, one of our systems, it's as easy as typing on a QWERTY keyboard. The other system, it's a little bit more involved, because you have to press the actual call buttons in sequence. Having done it once, then it becomes second nature. So it's not, you've not got to get a screwdriver out, you've not got to start and getting into serious programming modes within the system itself. You basically number the call point by pressing certain buttons in a sequence, and the full instructions to do that are provided within the user manuals.
Okay, great. Does the system have additional I/Os to allow reporting of the fire alarms, etc.?
So we sometimes get asked for connection to fire alarms, and I always make the point that the nurse call system should never be treated as a fire alarm system. However, there are situations where the fire alarm system can link into the nurse call system, and we create an alarm called fire alarm or whatever it may, and the fire alarm can then be displayed on the actual screens of the nurse call system. It wouldn't be configurable by in terms of which location the fire was, which the fire panel can do itself. It would just be a general fire. So we can link the fire system into, but I would always stipulate very, very heavily that we're not trying to be a fire alarm system, and the nurse call system should not be relied on to provide the only source of indication for the fire alarm system. But the short answer, I suppose, to your question is yes, it can.
Okay, great. Another question we've had come in is, how can I find out if a nurse call company is certified to Cat 1 standard?
Okay, so I think I skipped through the slide a bit too quickly. There was a slide there with our certification. So we had our radio module tested by a test house, independent test house. They then provided a certificate to say that it had been tested to category 1. So going to a nurse call provider, if you're going to a contractor who's supplying a system, they're not going to have that information. You need to go back to the manufacturer of the system, who may well have it written in their marketing blurb, but that's not sufficient. What you need to do is get them to give you a copy or a copy of the actual certificate which is on one of the slides which I skipped through. That's the only way you can check, and it really needs to be a test house, a third-party recognized test house, which is what we've used. And that's at the end of the day why some solutions are more expensive than others, because it's not a cheap process to have your products put through various testing to get that relative certification.
Okay, great stuff. So I'm just going to read these. I'm reading these questions as they come in. So apologies if it's sort of bouncing around all over the place.
Okay.
In terms of the reports, can you access them remotely?
So so there's the reports from the server can be downloaded and then exported manually into Excel type information. So all the alarm data, call data, timers, all that sort of stuff, everything is logged in there. But we also have cloud services. So again, using the 4G router that we would connect remotely if there was a problem, we use that same router and we upload the information every 10 minutes into the cloud, and then that can be made accessible for authorized users, either in an email, and then once you log into the system, you're on a dashboard that enables you to then compile reports, which at any point would be 10 minutes old. That's an optional service that we provide.
Okay, great. So in terms of call points, are there different versions of the call points available, such as cardiac and pull switches instead of just buttons?
Yes. So to meet with HTM 0803, we have to provide not just the call points, but the alarm types as well, and obviously the response of the system to that alarm type. So your call point would be a pull button for emergencies. Your cardiac button, again, is a blue button, not a red button, and it's a pull button rather than a push button, and it will display cardiac and its location on the screen, and it will make a different sound and a different color on the overdoor lights and that sort of stuff. So yes, and the pull cords can either be pull cords from room units, so the room unit can double up, for argument's sake, in a toilet environment where the room unit's on the wall, so that somebody can actually press it if they have difficulty in the toilet, or if they happen to have fallen off the toilet and are on the floor, there's a pull cord on the floor. And then we can have ceiling mounted pull cords as well, for shower or wet rooms and that type of thing.
Great stuff. Thanks ever so much. Okay, can you use smart devices such as phones and tablets?
Yes. So we can export's probably the wrong word. We can deliver the alarm information to a mobile phone. We have our own app, which basically replicates exactly the same information that you would see on the screen, which can go to a tablet or a mobile phone.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Are the pull cords anti-ligature?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. In terms of install, how do you minimize disruption on perhaps live wards?
Okay, so same as in care homes, really. The actual call point itself has a bracket. The bracket is fitted to the wall with two holes, two screws. In some cases, I think that they're sometimes fitted with Velcro. I mean, the things are not heavy things, but the bracket, in its worst case scenario, is fitted to the wall with two holes, two roll plugs, and two screws. So that process literally is going to take an engineer, 2 minutes to do, and then the room unit literally clips on the wall, and that's the job done.
Great stuff. Thank you for that. Is this product available for export?
Yes, as I said in my early slide, we have a number of dealers around the world. We're always looking for new opportunities in new locations, but yes, we do provide the solution around the world.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. And this is the last question we've had through. What levels of support do you provide?
Okay, so the initial when you have an initial problem, be it finger trouble, be it programming, be it something that the system should be doing that it's not, maybe, then a call, you place a call into our help desk. Our help desk is manned Monday to Friday, 8:30 till 4:30, and at that point, then you will go into a queue, depending on how busy we are at any given time. We would normally look to respond to you within 4 hours. And as I said earlier on, the vast majority, well over 90% of calls are dealt with and resolved without the need to actually move or visit site or anything of that nature. And we can also, as I say, remotely connect to the system if there's finger trouble, programming trouble, and also determine what maybe is the problem. And then outside those hours, the call is routed to our on-call engineers, who again, within the same time criteria, will respond with a phone call. And again, they have access to be able to remotely connect to the server, and in most cases will resolve the problem without them having to go to site. If a site visit is required, this is normally where a system is completely down. It's for whatever reason the system has gone down. Then we'll arrange with the relevant person we're talking to attend the site at the earliest opportunity.
Okay, we've just had another quick question in, Dave. So can you add staff attacks to the system at a later date?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Depending on which system we've put in, because as I mentioned before, there was two radio types. One was 433 megahertz, one was 869.2 megahertz. So ideally, the staff attack will work with one of those systems, but not with the other system. So provided if there was a thought that staff attack might be something going forward, that should be brought up at an early point, at which point the sales consultant can provide the right system that in the future can have the staff attack added to it. And as I say, the beauty of the Courtney Thorne solution is every call point acts as a collector or as a collector is probably the best word for the staff attack. And then where you want the staff attack to operate outside of the wards, then it's a very simple case of putting extra call units. Doesn't need any mains or anything, just the call units in corridors or in public areas. As long as they're high up out of harm's way, the staff attack system then can be extended outside of the wards.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's all for the questions, Dave. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I wasn't expecting quite so many questions, so thank you very much for the questions. Thank you very much for attending. I think the vast majority of attendees who started are still there. I think only one or two have decided to leave. We will be providing the slides and presentations that you've seen and the questions in the way of an email to everybody. And there's also a recording of the whole session that will be edited and be able to be provided to you as well. So thank you very much. No more questions coming, Barry?
No, not that I can see. So thanks everybody for attending today. Thank you very much for your wonderful questions.
I think we're done.
And thanks to the chaps at HEJ for organising today. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.